Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Alex Pavlak, and I am a systems engineer with Fortinet. And today's video, we are going to be taking a look at our FortiDeceptor product, which is a deception product that spins up fake virtual machines and spin those up as the most familiar term is going to be a honeypot. So the FortiDeceptor spins up different type of honeypots, running different type of operating systems, trying to identify attackers out on the network. So today we're going to be taking a look at the FortiDeceptor product and how we can use that to leverage getting insights if attackers are on the network, and then actively trying to quarantine those attackers. And also we are going to I'm going to give you a high-level overview of getting inside the mind of an attacker or a malicious actor, so you can kind of see when an attacker is on your network, what they are trying to do. So I'm going to go straight into this. So you can see here, this is the FortiDeceptor product. I've already spun up a couple different VMs for me to play around with and attack to show you in this video. So I'm going to show you these over here. If we go to decoy status, you can see I have a couple decoys that are already spun up. Basically, a decoy is going to be a fake virtual machine that the deceptor spins up, puts that out into your network, and tries to get attackers to hit that machine. So then we can actively try to identify if a malicious actor is in the network and then quarantine those devices and that attacker. So the one that we're going to be messing around with here today is going to be a PAX decoy. So this is running a HTTP server, and basically it replicates a real virtual machine that actually exists out in the world. PAX devices are used in the medical field. They're used to keep patient information, like weight, height, names. They are also used to share medical imagery with other doctors in other doctors' offices. So this is obviously something that you would definitely want to protect in your environment. So spinning up a fake one, trying to get an attacker, lure an attacker to the fake one, and then quarantine that attacker. So the one that we're going to be playing around with today is this PAX decoy. Here's the IP address. And if we click the view button, it does spin up a bunch of different lures on it. The lures are going to be usernames and passwords. So these get automatically, you can enter these in manually if you want to. And then there's also a generate button, which is going to generate all of these randomly for us. So it's very, very easy to do that. So just to give you an idea of what this looks like on the Deceptor machine, we're going to move over here to my Kali Linux instance. And I'm going to start off with just sort of showing you what an attacker is actually doing. We hear the word hacker, and it's a very commonly used word, but I want to actually give you an idea of what a hacker is actually doing when they're trying to infiltrate a device. So I'm just going to start off here. This is going to be very high level. I'm not the world's foremost expert in hacking. I've done some studying around ethical hacking myself, so I do have a little bit of knowledge, and I just kind of want to share that with you so you can get an idea of what hackers are doing when they get into your network. So the first thing that they're really going to do is do a general scan of the network. The most common application used to do that is a application called Nmap. So that is a scanning application. If you have any type of cybersecurity products in your environment, typically those are going to be able to see an Nmap scan happening in the network. attackers can be intentionally very loud. If they want to test out your security and they're doing penetration testing, they can be purposefully loud, and nmap scans should be able to be picked up. If they're not, then we already have a problem there. But so typically, what you see here is like, this is a command that's going to scan this entire network just so the attacker can get an idea of what devices actually exist out there in the network. I am going to narrow this down to my machine that we're already using as an example here. So, but just to give you an idea, they're going to start off with a scan of the entire network so we can get a general idea of what devices actually exist out in the network that we are trying to infiltrate. We have a specific host, so I'm going to do a scan of that specific host that I already know exists. So if we do nmap, I do want to get the operating system. I do want to get operating system information from this. So I'm going to use the -o flag. I'm going to use the -a flag. And then I am going to, I want to do a full scan because I want to see all the ports that are open on that machine and all the services that are running on that machine. So I'm not going to specify any specific ports to look for. If you wanted to do that, you would use the -p flag, and then you can specify which ports I actually want to check. But I'm going to check all of them. And then you're going to close off this command by entering in the IP address of the machine that we want to scan. So I already know that this is the one that I want to be trying to get into today. So I'm going to do a scan on this machine. We do need root privileges to do a operating system scan. So let me enter that in here. And this should just take a second. You can also speed up commands if you do the -T, and then you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 being the fastest scan. You might miss some things, 1 being the slowest type of scan. But if you did want to speed up your scan, you do have the option to do that. I'm not sure what default is for speed wise. Okay, so our scan just finished up here. You can see we got a bunch of information returned from this here. So let's take a look here. So it looks like we have port 21 open. It's running FTP. Looks like we have port 23 open, which is running a telnet service. Looks like we have port 80 open, that's running an HTTP server. And a couple different protocols open on this machine. Doing some device fingerprinting. It's running a Linux operating machine, version 3. Let's see. And looks like it's 2 hops away. So what an attacker is going to do here, he's looking to see what's actually open on the machine, and then using picking from those protocols that are open. He's going to pick the ones that are most commonly vulnerable. So FTP is a pretty common one that has just in general is going to be have a lot of vulnerabilities to it. Especially you can see here anonymous login is allowed. That's a huge red flag. So we could probably do something against that. Telnet, it should not. Telnet should really not be used. That's an unencrypted protocol. You really should only be using SSH. So we could possibly do something with that. For the purposes of this video, we're going to be taking a look at the HTTP side of things. So we can see to open on port 80 HTTP, looks like it's running Apache version 2.4.18. That is a pretty old version, I just know off the top of my head. So there's probably some vulnerabilities associated to this that we could potentially use. So that's kind of what an attacker is thinking. First thing that we're really going to do is we're just going to go to that IP address on port 80 and kind of see what happens. So if we type in that, and actually, before I do go over there, I'm going to pop back over to the Deceptor. And if we go to our incidents, we should already see the Deceptor flagging that there are some events happening against this machine. So you can see there was a bunch of connection flags, some interactions. So you can already see this is flagging for a lot of activity on this machine. So let's go back over here. So let's just go to this IP address and kind of see what happens. So it looks like there's a basic HTTP authentication for this machine. So a couple different things that we can do from here. Typically, they're going to run a directory buster. So that is going to be looking for all of the different type of subdirectories that exist off of this machine. For example, there could be like an admin one, there could be some type of directory. So this is basically going to be searching for any type of directories that exist off of this domain. If there are some subdirectories, we can potentially attack those for vulnerabilities. So let's go ahead and get that started. So we're using Directory Buster. This comes already preloaded in Kali Linux. We're going to speed this up to go as fast as possible. So you can specify the number of threads that are used. So we're going to just have this go as quickly as possible. And then you can do a pure brute force, which is basically going to try everything possible. There are some pre-loaded directory buster word lists in Kali Linux, so we're going to use those. So if we go back to the root folder here and under user and then share, if we scroll over to word lists, we can pick these word lists are curated lists of common directories that exist out there. So we're gonna, instead of just completely brute forcing that, we're gonna use one of these word lists. There we go. And then you can see the Durbuster folder here. We're going to use that. And then there's a couple different lists in here. So you can use like a smaller list, a medium-sized list, and then you can also just use specifically just lowercase lists. For this, let's just use this small one. And then we're going to start off with the base directory, and then you can use some different file extensions. So if we can use like text, PDF, JPEG, PNG. So you can look for different file extensions here. I'm just going to look for those ones for the purposes of this video. So let's go ahead and get that started. This can take some time to complete. So the first thing I want to do is just get this going. There we go. Okay, so we got that running now. So let's just leave that running in the background here. The next thing that we can try to do here is we can try to figure out username and password to log in with. So you can brute force this. You can just send a bunch of username and passwords at this. To do that, we're going to use Burp Suite. So Burp Suite is something that you can download for Kali. And basically what this is going to do is, instead of, we're going to be curating just a bunch of username and passwords to throw at this. So we use a proxy. So it's going to intercept what we're trying to send here, and then just basically inject a bunch of username and passwords at this. So to do that, you turn on the proxy to intercept this web page, send it over to Burp Suite, and then Burp Suite is going to send a bunch of username and passwords at this to try to get in. I do know username and password, so we're from our list of lures that were created from the Deceptor. So I already do know some username and passwords for this, but I just kind of want to show you what an attacker is going to try to do here. So to start off here, we can use the, we're going to turn on the intercept, and you need to come back into your web browser and come over into your proxy settings and set up your proxy to send this over. So you basically just need to put in your loopback IP address, and it listens on port 8080. So we click OK. And then if we put in just test. Try to reconfigure this. So it looks good. Okay, so there you can see it did intercept this request. So I'm going to actually just turn this off and then go back so we can get that login page back up here. So let me go ahead and just turn that off really quick. Come back here. Let's reload this page. Now I'm going to turn the intercept back on. Let's try that again. There we go. This is what we want here. So we need the authorization here. So you can see it sends it over in a base 64 That's the language that this is in. We can actually take this and come over to a converter and see what we're actually sending here. So if we come back here to just need to turn off the proxy again. Copy and paste that in there. You can see it comes out to test in a regular format. So we need to put in base 64s to pass over to inject those and send these over. So first off, we're going to highlight this and then right click, and then we're going to send this over to intruder. And then here within intruder, this is kind of where we're injecting our code into this. So I'm just going to show you how you would do this. I'm not going to actually execute this because I do have my username and passwords already. So we can basically take here, we're taking this code of what we're sending over, and we want to add this here. And then under the payloads, this is where we're going to edit what we're actually sending over. So you can see the type of attack is set up here. So this is a sniper attack. You can see what it does here. It's a single set of payloads that we're sending over. So you can enter in actual specific username and passwords to send over. There are actually preloaded username passwords list here from ones that were hacked before. So there's a huge set of commonly used username and passwords that were found existing out there in the world already. So they've curated those into lists that we can use to try to get in. So you can do that here. Basically, you can just load up those lists and then send those lists over. That's one way to do this. You can also there are some commonly used ones for different type of versions, like Apache versions and web server OSs. So just to kind of show you that too, let's come over back into our terminal. So we're going to be using the Metasploit program. Metasploit is very, very commonly used application by hackers. You can use it to scan systems for ports, for operating systems, to do scans for it for possible vulnerabilities that it might exist. And then you can launch attacks directly from Metasploit. So they basically preload in the payloads that are used in attacks, and then you can just very easily set like what machine that you want to attack, and then use Metasploit to do that. So very, very commonly used application. So we want to just start that up here. So so you basically just need to start up the database, and then you can run the MSF console to actually bring this up. So if we come back over to our scan here, this is saying that we are running Apache version 2.4.18. I do kind of want to further verify that we are running that. If we come into back into Firefox here, there is a extension called Wapalizer that you can use, which is going to feed you that information. So this is also saying that it is running 2.4.18. You can also use Metasploit to check that as well. So if we go to use auxiliary scanner HTTP, this is going to list out all of the different modules that exist for HTTP. So you can see there's a bunch of different ones that we can pick from here. There's a bunch of different Apache ones, HTTP specifically for Apache. But first, we want to just double verify what we're using here. So let's just do HTTP scanner. Let me double check that. Version. And then from here, we hit show options, and it shows the different things that we can do with this module. So we need to enter in where we're actually sending this over to. So if we do set our host to our IP address, and then we use the run command, it's going to run that over here. And this is also returning that this is running Apache 2.4.18 on an Ubuntu version of Linux. So pretty 100% sure that this is running 2.4.18. So from now, what an attacker wants to do, so we know for sure that it's running this version of Apache. So from here, you can basically come over and just start Googling vulnerabilities associated to this version of Apache. So let's turn off this intercept here. Looks like our directory buster is still going. So let's turn off the proxy. I kind of showed you how an attacker would try to brute force login name and password. Just basically picking out this here and then injecting what you want into here for the username and password. So let's go ahead and turn that off. No proxy, we are already off. So what an attacker is going to do from here is they're going to be looking for vulnerabilities that might already exist out in the world for Apache 2.4.18. So let's just come to Google and we're just going to do and see if one of these payloads already exist in Metasploit. And you can see we've got a bunch of hits in here already. Rapid7 is a really good website to search out vulnerabilities. And actually, before we go to that, just to go back to trying to get around that authentication piece, there is one that's already built into Metasploit. I think I mentioned it earlier, but you can use a module in here that's HTTP login, and it basically is just going to send a bunch of commonly used usernames and see if those exist on the server. So let's just use that, and you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. We're going to do show options and see what type of options we need to set here. Only thing that we really need to set in here is the host again. And let's run that. And you can see it's passing off a bunch of usernames and just seeing if those exist. And I already know that none of these commonly used usernames actually exist on there. So these are all going to fail. But just to give you an idea of what an attacker is doing. So let's come back over to here. So let's use Rapid7. That's a good website that I was referring to earlier. So you can see that it's giving you some known vulnerabilities that you can try to exploit from this version of Apache, that 2.4.18. That one doesn't seem very interesting. This is another good website. So let's see if this is coming back with. So there are, you can see a ton of CVEs that are associated to this. So there's probably something that exists. Let's see. And you can actually search for exploits and vulnerabilities directly within Metasploit as well. So if we come in here to use auxiliary scanner, HTTP. So you can see there's a bunch of vulnerabilities, right, for HTTP, but we are attacking Apache specifically, the operating system of the HTTP server. So let's go ahead and search Metasploit for Apache specifically. So you can see here, there's a whole bunch of vulnerabilities that we can use within Metasploit for Apache. So if we come here, this one looks interesting. So if we copy this and we hit use and paste this in, and we do info, we can get a little bit more information regarding this exploit. So it looks like this is enumerating usernames within the user directory. So this looks like could be useful. So yeah, you can search vulnerabilities directly within Metasploit as well. Yeah, so this is basically what an attacker is doing. So they're enumerating the machine to see what's open on there, and then going into the operating systems and then trying to search for vulnerabilities that exist with that operating system. So from a super high level overview, that is sort of the workflow that an attacker is going to go through. They're going to scan the network, see what machines actually exist out there. Then from there, they're going to enumerate those ports and see what services are open on them. And then if it's running the HTTP or HTTPS server, trying to verify what type of application is running that service. So you can see it was Apache 2.4.18. So they're going to go and try to confirm that the server is actually running that, and then try to look for exploits that are associated to that version of application or operating system. So that's the general workflow that an attacker is going to go through. There's a couple different things that they can do. Normally, they're going to, well, they're either going to try to pull information off of that machine. So they're going to be trying to get username and passwords off of it, or they're going to try to create a reverse shell. So they're basically bypassing like any type of firewall that exists out there. So you can't, if you just try to connect to that machine, say you're from outside the network and try to get into it using like port 22, getting an SSH session to it, the firewall is going to block that because it's only allowing HTTP to it. So what you do is a reverse shell. So you get into it using HTTP. So you look for those vulnerabilities associated to HTTP. You exploit those, and then you get it to do a reverse shell. So you get into the server, and then you get the server to actually reach out to your machine. So outbound sessions are allowed through the firewall. So you basically can allow the so you get the server to reach out to your machine first, which is punches a hole in the firewall for that connection, and then you can get that SSH session back to it, and then you can do anything from there. You might need to do what's called privilege escalation. So you might get a username and password to log into it that only has certain credentials. So then you need permissions, I mean. And then from there, you can do the privilege escalation, which are vulnerabilities within SSH that you can do privilege escalation and then get yourself root privileges so you can get all access to it. So that's just sort of getting into the mind of an attacker, so you can get an idea of what a hacker is actually doing. Because you hear that term, but like it's just thrown around, and you don't really know what they're doing. So I hope that was informative for you, so you can get into the head of what a nefarious actor is trying to do there. You can, from the directory buster, so if you find some directories that exist, looks like there are some directories from here. There might be some vulnerabilities associated with any type of like extra services that are running off of this. So now I just I want to get into the FortiDeceptor part of this. So now that FortiDeceptor, if you're interacting with a decoy, there's no false positives in the world of deception. Any type of interaction with a decoy, there should never be. It's placed out there just to see, trying to get attackers to interact with it so we can identify that there is an attacker out there. So there's never false positives in the world of decoys. So any type of interaction should never happen with a decoy. If there is, it's probably a malicious actor. So what do we want to do from here? Now that we've gotten an interaction with the machine, what do we want to happen? Typically, you want to kick that attacker off of the network. First, you would kind of want to let them play around with the machine to sort of see what the actor is trying to get. So we know that there's a malicious actor, but what are they actually trying to get? Are they trying to pull out username and passwords? Are they trying to get sensitive client information? So when we launch the decoy, there's going to be an option in there. So if we go to the deployment wizard, I'm just going to do basically like a fake one for right now. Let's go down to packs. So this is the generate lures that I was referring to earlier. Basically generates a bunch of username and passwords for you. And then if we come all the way down to the bottom here, we can do the reset decoy. So this is going to allow the attacker to kind of mess around with the decoy before actually executing any type of quarantine and resetting the device. So how this is defining how long we actually want to let this malicious actor sort of mess around with this decoy and try to identify what they're doing. So let's just give them, 10 minutes or 5 minutes. So that's what we would set there. So basically gonna execute any type of quarantine action and then reset anything that they've done on the decoy, reset it back to all the defaults. So let's come back to our decoy status and let's get one of those username and passwords that were already created. And let's kind of look and see around like what is actually existing on this machine. So we have Shannon and Flower. So let's go ahead and use that. Let's go ahead and relaunch this. So Shannon and Flower. An actor could have infiltrated another device and pulled that username and password off of a device. We can also set those up as what are called tokens. So we set up these fake username and passwords. We put them as a token on a machine, and then we can listen to see if people are using those passwords. And basically the tokens try to lure people off of actual real devices onto fake assets. So you kind of put a token out there. It might say like web server, username and password, IP address. So if attackers snooping around on a device and they see that, that's pretty interesting. And they're likely to get off of that machine and then move over to the decoy. So that's what a token is going to do there. So you can see we got into the web server. You can see we're into find a patient. So we can see that there's a bunch of patient information here. So the decoys are very, very real to an attacker. This looks like a real machine. But this is a totally fake asset that we've deployed out there. But you can see it looks very, very real. So I did want to show you how real these decoys can look. If we come down in here to the Shannon Curtis file here, we come into knee and then the SAG here, and we come into the preview series. You can see that there are actual images of MRIs that are uploaded in here. So from an attacker's point of view, this looks very, very real, but in actuality, this is a totally fake asset. So I did just kind of want to highlight here for you that these assets do look very real to people who are not familiar with them. So just wanted to highlight that here for you guys. What do we want to do actually now that we've identified that there's an attacker? We can kind of see we've identified what they're actually trying to pull out. Looks like they're trying to look at patient information. Obviously, that's very sensitive. So what do we want to do from here? So from here, we would want to quarantine that actor. So this is one of the integrations that the Deceptor has with FortiGate, the Fortinet firewall. So if you come over here to Fabric and we come into quarantine integration, this is the IP address of my FortiGate. And you can see it's I've already authorized this. So I've set these up as connectors to each other. So now that the Deceptor has identified that there's a malicious actor out there in the network, we want to do a quarantine of that device. So set up the integration with the firewall. Based on the severity, we can quarantine people. So I just want to set this to low. And then how long do we actually want to set the quarantine for? You can set that here. So let's just put this, test this out here. So let's set that for 5 seconds, apply. And we do want to enable this, and then the block severity level, and save. And now let's start. Looks like this has failed. Let me try this again. Okay, looks like we are good now. So let's just come back over to my machine here. Let's start firing off just some pings. You can see that we are successful. Let's just fire off this scan again, which will get us some interaction with the device, and we should see us get quarantined here and stop. Actually, let me come back over here to my settings for this decoy. Let's see. Looks like I have it set up for 3600 seconds. So this would execute after that 5 minutes here. So I'm actually just gonna skip over this for now, but you can get an idea of what that looks like. Basically, I want to set any interaction with this to quarantine that person after a certain amount of time. If we come over here down into quarantine status, we can see the different type of quarantines. That we've sent over to quarantine devices. So you can see there's a bunch of different quarantines. From here, you could actually manually unblock people if you wanted to. So it does give you the option to do that. So I did identify why this integration was failing before. If we come into edit here, we were using REST API. You can see that it's compatible up to 7.2.3 FortiGate version. I am currently running 7.2.5, which is why this was failing. So to basically just work around that, I set up a security fabric automation. So if we come into the Deceptor band here, for my trigger, you just come into create and then fabric connector event. My connector is my Deceptor. I used insider threat, and then I just set this to low. That was my trigger. And then my action, I set up as ban IP address. And this did execute, this did quarantine my device. If we come back over here to quarantine status, you can see here that I had some quarantines executed here. And then under my automation here, you can see that this was last triggered 18 minutes ago. So it did ban my IP address. I had to log into my FortiGate and unban my IP address. Spin back up this meeting and start the recording for this. So you can see that basically how quarantine can work. You can see in the quarantine integration, there are a ton of different integration methods. You can see that we integrate with all these other different products that do exist out there, not just Fortinet. And if you do run into this where you're running a version that's not compatible, you could also change this to a webhook and just send a webhook over as well. If we come over here to my Linux machine, you can see I was pinging another decoy. Those pings did start to fail once I did get quarantined, and I was pinging out to the internet as well. And you can see that those pings did start to fail as well. So I just did want to show you the quarantine integration and how that can work with FortiDeceptor. And then just to take a look at, to give you an idea of the different type of information that you can pull out from what the attacker was doing. So if we come in here, let's do all. And let's go into one of these interactions here. You can see it gives you a lot of information on what the attacker was doing, what actual HTTP requests that they were sending, what port number and IP addresses that they were using. And then you can also see what type of MITRE techniques that were being used. And then you can also you can download the actual PCAP file. So they're always listening on the decoys, and they're taking a PCAP of all so you can get to actually download and see the actual traffic that was being sent to the machine. So I hope that was informative for you guys, just to get an idea of what is going on inside the mind of a malicious actor or a hacker, and what the FortiDeceptor can do for you in your environment. So I want to thank you guys for listening to the video, and let me know if anybody has any questions in the comment section. Thanks, guys.